You open the fridge, you stare into it for 10 seconds. Nothing looks good. You close it again. This happens almost every day, and you've probably never asked why choosing food feels this hard. But the real answer is far stranger than a lack of imagination. Your ancestors didn't have this problem, not because they had fewer choices, because they had a completely different relationship with food itself. For most of human history, eating wasn't a decision, it was a negotiation with survival. Think about what you assume ancient diet means. Maybe some berries, a campfire, a caveman gnawing on a bone. That image is everywhere. It's in cartoons, documentaries, diet books, and it's mostly wrong. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham spent decades studying early human diets. His research points to something surprising. Cooking, not meat, may be the single biggest reason your brain is the size it is. Cooked food is easier to digest. It releases more calories per bite. Your gut doesn't have to work as hard. That saved energy went somewhere. It went into your skull. So the fire wasn't just for warmth. It was an evolutionary shortcut, a tool that let your ancestors' bodies spend less on digestion and more on thinking. Raw food takes hours of chewing every day. Chimpanzees still spend nearly half their waking life doing it. Cooking cut that time dramatically, and those spare hours went toward tools, teaching, and talking around a fire. Isn't it strange that a hominid learning to burn wood might be the real reason you can read this sentence? But cooking came later. Long before fire was common, your ancestors were eating something else entirely, something you'd probably never guess. Underground. Briths, tubers, starchy plants dug out of dry soil with sharpened sticks. Paleoanthropologists working in East Africa found evidence that early hominids relied heavily on these buried carbohydrates. Not steak, not mammoth, dirt-covered starch. Why does this matter to you? Because your body still remembers it. Humans carry extra copies of a gene called AMY1, which helps break down starch in saliva. Researchers studying human evolution found that populations with high starch diets tend to carry more copies of this gene. Your saliva is doing something your ancestors' saliva did a million years before agriculture existed. Meat mattered too, but not the way you picture it. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups, like the Hadza of Tanzania, have documented something counterintuitive. Big game hunts often failed. Most days ended without a kill. Meat was a windfall, not a foundation. The real backbone of the diet was plants, roots, nuts, fruit, insects in many regions, protein and fat when luck allowed it. A skilled hunter might go days without bringing home meat. On those days, nobody starved. Women and children kept the group fed with steady, reliable digging and gathering. Tubers don't run away. Berries don't require a spear. The unglamorous work of digging in the dirt was, for most of human history, the thing standing between your ancestors and hunger, not the dramatic hunt everyone imagines. Here's the twist. You've probably heard the phrase paleo diet tossed around gyms and grocery stores. Lean meat, few carbs, back to basics. But if your actual Paleolithic ancestors saw a modern paleo meal, they might not recognize it as normal at all. Their normal was inconsistency. Feast, then days of belly enough. Starch-heavy stretches broken up by rare bursts of fat and protein. Not a clean macro split. A gamble, repeated daily, for millions of years. That gamble shaped something deep inside you. Your body evolved to crave calorie-dense food because calories were never guaranteed. Sugar, fat, and salt weren't indulgences to your ancestors. They were insurance. A brain wired to chase them was a brain that survived famine. Now think about your fridge again. Every shelf stocked. Every craving satisfiable in minutes. Your ancient reward system hasn't caught up. It still treats abundance like scarcity might return tomorrow. That's not weakness. That's 50,000 generations of programming colliding with a grocery store that never runs out. There's another layer worth noticing, one about fat specifically. Modern diet culture treats fat almost like an enemy. But to your ancestors, fat was closer to treasure, the most calorie-dense substance available in nature. Anthropologists studying hunter-gatherer food preferences have documented that when a large animal was killed, the fatty organs and marrow were often prized above the muscle meat modern eaters consider the real meal. Lean meat alone can actually be hard for the human body to survive on for long stretches. Your craving for a rich, fatty meal isn't a modern indulgence. It's an old instinct pointed at the most valuable resource your ancestors could find. Consider something else you do without thinking. You season your food. That instinct isn't new either. Evidence from sites in Africa and the Middle East suggests early humans sought out specific plants not just for calories but for flavor and medicinal effect. an early form of self-medication. Why does any of this matter now, sitting in your kitchen in the 21st century? Because the mismatch between your ancient wiring and your modern environment explains more than you'd expect. Why sugar is so hard to resist. Why just one bite rarely stays just one bite. Why a diet built entirely around willpower usually fails. You're not fighting a personal flaw. You're fighting millions of years of biology that assumed food would sometimes run out. Public health researchers studying the evolutionary mismatch theory describe modern chronic disease partly through this lens. Bodies built for scarcity dropped into permanent abundance. Diabetes, obesity, and related conditions aren't simply failures of discipline. They're what happens when ancient instincts meet an environment they were never built to handle. There's something almost humbling in that. You didn't choose to crave what you crave. Your ancestors chose it for you, generation after generation, one meal at a time, long before anyone knew what a calorie was. So the next time you stand in front of the fridge, undecided, remember what's actually happening. That hesitation isn't indecision. It's an ancient calculation running in the background, shaped by roots dug from dry soil, unpredictable hunts, shared fires, and bodies that learned to hoard energy because energy was never promised. You are not choosing between snacks. You are living out the same negotiation your ancestors made every single day of their lives, between what your body wants and what your environment provides. The fridge hums. You close the door again, and somewhere underneath that simple, ordinary moment, 50,000 generations are still quietly making the same decision they always did.